So it is 2020, and this year is going to hold a lot of changes for Workshop 1776. So since people have been asking me for a shop tour, I decided that we could knock one out real fast, especially because we're going to be getting a new shop in 2020, and just because we're moving, so it's going to be another garage. We're not getting fancy on you or anything. But I thought we could get this one documented, and then we can compare it to the next shop we do. So, all right, the first thing we're going to talk about is the tool wall, which is directly behind my workbench, which we'll see in a second. You guys have seen it before, but you're gonna see it again. This is just a piece of plywood that is screwed into the studs in the wall. That way you can make these little, like, I don't know, shelves, I guess, and they can go wherever you need to put them. So I've moved these quite a few times. This is the configuration that I've landed on, which is basically like all my power tools up top, and this guy, because I don't use them all that often, but they're easy to get to and they're not in the way. The second level is the stuff that I use the most. So this is like the hub right here. I have my Alexa and my like Bose speaker. Hand plane, that's just, I don't use that all the time, but it's just a good spot for it. And then like pens and pencils and stuff, screwdrivers, router bits, my mallet, you know, like my drills and stuff like that. So that makes, you know, when I'm standing at my workbench right here, it's really easy just to turn around and grab whatever I need. And more importantly, it's a lot easier to replace them. That's I found that to be a really big problem when you don't have a specific spot for something. Then it ends up just going everywhere and you can't find it ever. So, okay, down here, this is just right below the tool wall. I didn't move the camera at all. I've got bar clamps, my paint sprayer, track saw, and then just like some other random things that I use every once in a while. I have extra pencils and stuff right here and dowels. When I'm making the big flags, I use these all the time. So there we go. I use these all the time. And then, you know, a carpenter square. That's one of my most used items as well. Okay, moving down the line. So here are the drills. That's kind of where we left off. And then my sander, which is obviously, that's an every project tool. So that's easy to get to. And then I have like screws, and these are the ones that I use the most. I just keep the boxes so I can tell what they are from the outside. It's really easy. And then just some other like gluing things. Oh, I forgot to mention the glue back there, but that's where I put the glue. Sorry. And then up here I have sanding pads. So I have them labeled just so I can easily reference how many I have. It's not so much that I don't know where they are, it's just that from a glance I can tell if I need to go pick up more 220, which I do. So, and they're right above the sander. So underneath is my Craig pocket hole jig, with all of its little accessories and stuff like that, and then some more, you know, drill bits and stuff like that. So that's it for this area, and then we'll move on to the side over here. Okay, continuing around the corner, Woodpecker's T-square. Thing's awesome. I use it all the time. It's great for like plywood. Good tool. So the workbench you guys have seen 1,000 times. We'll get to that in just a second. Continuing on is my bandsaw right here, which is all dirty. And I use this probably like once or twice a week, so that's why it's kind of in the corner tucked away. What I really don't use very often at all is my drill press right here, so that's why it's like pushed back and around the corner, because it was just sitting there and not getting used very often. So I think once I find a better need, like I need it more often, then I'll, you know, I'll move it back out. I also have some like clamps and just like random stuff. This is kind of like the corner that everything gets pushed into when I'm not using it, i.e., you know, silicone molds and like a water bottle, like spray bottle, and some gloves and stuff like that. Stuff that I want to have around, but I don't really want to put away. That's where it goes. Okay, so you guys have seen me reach for stuff under the bench in a lot of my videos. This is what I'm reaching for. I have a ton of stuff down here that I use all the time, but I always forget that I'm gonna need it for the video. So I got stuff like epoxy and all my spray paints and like clear coat kind of stuff. I also have my wood stains, extra propane for the torch, gloves, little like wood straws and stuff for the epoxy pigments. So you know, tape. This is kind of like the consumables type stuff that I use all the time, but don't really have a really good spot for, so it always ends up underneath the bench. But that's what I'm doing. I'm rummaging around in this mess that's down here. Okay, moving on from the bandsaw. This is a table that I built a few months back just because I needed some extra like benchtop space for tools. It hasn't really turned into that. I have 3 tools on it, one of which I use fairly regularly, which is the, get out of here, Stan. What are you doing, dude? The one I use the most is my belt sander, like combination belt, disc sander, everything's awesome. And it's really just this has turned into like where projects that are half finished kind of sit. Like right here, you can see that. I've got, I don't know, like 5 or 6 flag projects just sitting right here that either need like a finish coat or a little bit of like edge work or something like that. I think why they accumulate here is because it's easy to get to and it's out of the way of everything else. Since I moved my drill press off, there's really nothing sitting there. I also keep my my like melamine boards that are covered in Tyvek tape here too, just because it's for the same reason. But the disc belt sander combo is awesome. This was a really cheap one I bought from Home Depot. It's Ryobi, but it works awesome, or it works great. It works awesomely. I don't know. But anyway, I've used this for so many things that I didn't think I was going to need it for. So if you don't have a combination, disc belt sander, I highly recommend buying one. They're worth their weight in gold, and you'll use it a lot more than you think. So that's a good one, and they're relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of other tools you could be buying. Okay, let's move on to the miter station. Okay, Mitre Saw. This is the rigid, sliding, double bevel, very fancy Mitre Saw. I really like this Mitre Saw a lot. That being said, it's too big for my shop. I don't need something this large. You can see how much room it takes up from the front of the sliding part to the back where it goes all the way out. So if you have a small shop like I do, I would recommend getting like the step down from this that isn't so big. I very rarely need to pull this thing all the way out here to make a cut, that's all the way down there. So 99% of my cuts are right here. So it would take up a lot less room just to have something that maybe doesn't slide, or a smaller blade or something on there. So great saw, it is awesome. I just don't really have the room for it. It is by far the largest piece in my shop. And I don't really need it to be that big. So, I made this little outfeed, infeed outfeed, I don't really know what it is, for the Mitre Saw, just so I could more easily set up stop blocks for things that were too big for the wings that came on the saw. But that has worked out really well. I think eventually this is just gonna go in the trash when I move this station and keep the saw. I think I'll make like a full-on, like a J-bait style one where it's the whole wall is like a miter station with like cabinets and stuff like that. But I'm gonna wait till we get into our final shop, wherever that is. And then here you can see like the lumber racks. My dad and I built these. They're just little plywood, little rectangles of plywood with a U cut out of it just to save some room. Mounted to the sides of a 2x4. The 2x4s are, drilled into the studs, into the wall. And then we just made sure that they were completely level when we were assembling them all. And it's worked out really well. They're super easy to get to when there isn't a CNC machine in the way, which I'll show you in a minute. But I like having the 3 tiers on the smaller pieces, medium, and then the longer pieces onto the top. So that was a good little DIY storage rack that cost me, I think $25 or something like that. It was less than a sheet of plywood and 2 2x4s. So here is the table saw, and everyone says the table saw is the heart of the shop. That's why mine's kind of in the middle. I had to push it towards the side just because I've been storing some stuff behind me. It's usually about a foot or 2 behind where I'm sitting right now, but it's out of the way, so it makes sense. This is just a rigid, I think this was like a $500 table saw. It was the first tool I bought, and I love it. It's awesome. I am outgrowing it. I think I need something with a stainless steel top and a little bit more work area. But for $500, this thing folds up and you can wheel it over and put it in the corner when you're not using it. And that's what I was looking for because I had a lot less room. I was still parking in the garage at that time, so I wanted everything to be on wheels and easily put away. I've since gone away from that just because I'm out here so much more now that it's a lot of wasted time putting things away and getting things out. So for $500, this is a great table saw. Yeah, so from the table saw, I had a makeshift, this is my catch-all table. It's an assembly table, drying table, outfeed table, whatever. And I don't even know where we got, I think this like piece of wood is like a leaf from an old table. So, leaf table. And it's just propped up on some sawhorses. That's it. So it's not very, it's still like modular and mobile and stuff like that if I need to take it apart and move it. But since making it kind of my outfeed table, I haven't moved it very much. But there's some flags drying on it right now. So the little modular outfeed table works okay. It's too low. Like you're supposed to have your outfeed table, I think it's either an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch below the top of your table saw top. But that's the height that the sawhorses are. I could build one. I just haven't really put the time and effort into doing it. So I'll do that eventually. Like I said, we're moving. So when we get to the new place, that's where I'm gonna like focus all my efforts into having more like custom made stuff that isn't so modular probably. And I'm probably gonna get a new table saw, you know, soon after we move as well. So, all right, let's move on to the CNC machine. Very fancy CNC machine, you might say. And I thought the same thing. I think this thing is awesome, and it would be even more awesome if it worked. This is my this is my buddy's CNC machine that he didn't have room for in his garage, so he's moving. I've had this thing for a few months now, and he said that I could borrow it. Like it was like a twofer. Like I'm storing it for him because he didn't have room for it until he moves, and I could use it while, you know, storing it. However, the software that I need to put on my computer doesn't, like for some reason doesn't work on my computer. It's like a proprietary software to run this thing, and he's had this for a few years and doesn't have like the 16-digit key you have to put in order to access the software or whatever. So it's not really taking up too much room in my garage. Like it's not in the way of anything except for the lumber rack, which I can still get to. But eventually I'm gonna get a CNC machine, probably one like this, and I'll have the software in order to run it as well. So this is pretty much where the shop ends. You can see that this is kind of where, this is the other corner where stuff just gets tossed. Like I have a bunch of offcuts, like I don't want to throw these away for some reason. So things end up like accumulating on here. I have like extra flags, like those were failed flags over there. I don't know if you can see those. But for some reason I don't want to throw them away, so they're just like kind of accumulating in this area. And then underneath it I just have like, I don't even know what I have under there. Sawdust, pretty much just sawdust under there. Some other stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole shop. I'll give you another shot from like the garage. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much like the whole like setup of my shop. I've got a couple other things on the ground, like my air compressor and planer and stuff like that. But that was for the most part everything, all the big pieces anyway. So I hope you guys liked it. Happy New Year, and we'll see you in the next one.